Matthew 20 to 16, the generosity of the kingdom. Matthew records a parable in which Jesus says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard." The imagery is drawn from a familiar scene in the first century world. Landowners commonly went to the marketplace where day laborers gathered, seeking employment for the day. The vineyard, throughout Scripture, is frequently used as a symbol of Israel and God's covenant dealings with his people, as seen in passages such as Isaiah 5. The landowner goes out at daybreak and hires laborers, agreeing with them for a denarius for the day's work. A denarius was the standard wage for a full day of labor. The agreement is just and expected. These workers enter the vineyard under the terms that were clearly stated. Yet the story unfolds in an unexpected way. The landowner returns to the marketplace at the third hour, then again at the sixth and ninth hours, and finally at the 11th hour, nearly the end of the workday. Each time he finds others standing idle and sends them into the vineyard, promising that he will give them what is right. The striking moment comes when evening arrives and the time for payment begins. The landowner instructs his steward to pay the laborers, beginning with the last and moving to the first. Those who worked only the final hour receive a full denarius. When those who labored throughout the entire day see this, they naturally expect to receive more. Yet they also receive a denarius, the same wage. This provokes complaint among the first workers. They say, "These last have worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden and the heat of the day." Their grievance reveals their expectation that reward should be proportional to effort. The landowner responds, "Friend, I do you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good?" The parable concludes with the statement, "So the last will be first and the first last. For many are called, but few chosen." Within the narrative of Matthew's gospel, this parable addresses the unfolding transition within God's covenant dealings. For centuries, Israel stood within a covenant system by law, temple, priesthood, and national privilege. Many within that system regarded their standing before God as something earned through long participation in that covenant structure. Yet, with the arrival of the Messiah, the kingdom of heaven was being revealed in a new and decisive way. The message proclaimed by Jesus and later by his apostles declared that entrance into the kingdom did not come through the accumulation of merit, lineage, or long-standing participation in the old covenant order. Instead, it was grounded entirely in the generosity of God. Those who came later, tax collectors, sinners, Gentiles, and those outside the traditional structures of religious privilege, would receive the same standing in the kingdom as those who had long considered themselves first. The denarius in the parable represents the gift granted by the master. It is not portrayed as a wage earned by productivity, but as something given according to the landowner's will. Even the first workers ultimately receive what was promised, yet the focus of the story shifts from contractual expectation to the goodness of the giver. The complaint of the early workers reflects the mindset of calculating reward according to effort. Their protest reveals an assumption that proximity to the work or longevity in the vineyard should produce greater standing. The landowner dismantles this reasoning by pointing back to the original agreement and asserting his right to extend generosity. In this way, the parable exposes the difference between a system based on measured performance and a kingdom established through the goodness of the king. The final statement, "The last will be first and the first last," echoes a recurring theme in the ministry of Jesus. Those who were considered outsiders were being brought near, while those who relied upon their position within the old religious order often found themselves resisting the very grace being extended. Within the broader narrative of the gospel, this teaching prepares the reader for the approaching climax of Israel's covenant age. The vineyard imagery, the tension between the first and the last, and the controversy surrounding the generosity of the master all point toward the dramatic shift that was unfolding in that generation. The kingdom of heaven, as described by Jesus, operates according to the goodness of the landowner rather than the calculations of the laborers. The reward given is the same for all, because it proceeds from the will and generosity of the one who calls workers into his vineyard. Thus, the parable stands as a declaration that the blessing of the kingdom is not distributed on the basis of accumulated labor, but according to the gracious purpose of the one who owns the vineyard. In that kingdom, the last may be first, and the first may be last, because the gift itself is determined by the goodness of the master.